Give me a 10 sec. Oh, there we go. We are live. All right. Okay. Now, welcome. Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of Daily Gooner Pod here. I'm Raphael, as usual, joining you from the United States, Austin, Texas, to be precise. Two of my friends on the UK side and the England side. Jacob, welcome back, Jacob.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good, all things considered. Still top of the league. We'll start with that. And then joining us, making his debut, and we need him this week for the moral support, for the insightful discussion. Welcome, MJ. Good to have you on the pod.
Thanks. Looking forward to this.
All right. Again, the usual suspects, Ryan and Sam, could not make it this week, but they will be back. Again, we have there's a lot of football up ahead, a lot to discuss in this pod. Tomorrow, the beginning of Europa League campaign. Arsenal travels to Switzerland to play FC Zurich. Obviously, on the weekend, they want to get back on the horse, maintain their lead atop. It's a 1-point lead now. Maintain their lead atop the league as they host Everton. But we must begin with the postmortem from Old Trafford. Jacob, this was... Seen so many people, so many divisions of opinion among the fans. Some people say the 3-1 result was very flattering to United. Other people are saying, no, they actually deserved it. Arsenal kind of played into their hands. We've had some time to digest it, let the adrenaline calm, let the bile kind of settle. How do you see it
now? I think both those statements are true, as contradicting as that is. In terms of the overall play and how much possession we had, and particularly territory, we were mostly playing in their third. So when you take into that account, and we did look the better team for a lot of the game, 3-1 did flatter them. However, they also deserved it in the fact that they had their tactics. They set up in a way that was designed to get in behind us, and it worked, and they got 3 goals, and you can't argue with any of them, unfortunately.
All right. MJ, take it. What's your take? You have a slightly different spin on this.
No, it's pretty much along the same lines. I think for most of the periods of play that we played pretty well. I think this is one of those fixtures every year. I'm always nervous throughout the whole day before the game. I don't know what it is, but it's one of the 3 games I'm always nervous. But out of all the previous games that we've gone to Old Trafford, this was probably one of the better performances with the ball. I think last season we sort of held back a tiny bit, but for this one we really imposed sort of our plan A, what we've done well so far in the season. I think United didn't have to work too hard to get their goals. It's kind of my opinion. I think some of the goals were sort of self-inflicted. So, for example, the first goal we conceded, Sambi sort of pushes ahead far too much to the centre-backs, and that's left a massive circle of space in front of Gabriel. And he's got no choice but to push on to Bruno. So then all of a sudden there's panic amongst the back.
Just a domino, right? One closes and then, right. And they did, United, to their credit, moved it, just finally found Anthony to close it out.
Yeah, and they punished us for it.
Yeah, that Gabriel committing also forced Zinchenko to come in and cover that space, which left the space out wide. So yeah, the domino effect is right.
One thing that I don't know, I'm of 2 minds of this. It could concern me a little bit because I know when this club came out of the break last year, the last international break, where they went in 4th place, and then they came out of it and they had we assumed the 3 easy matches, quote unquote, against mid-table, lower half of the table teams, and they didn't get any results, and they started losing. And yet when you looked at it, they were buzzing around the opponent's box. They were getting couple dozen chances. Mikel came out after one, I forget particular one, and said, I don't know how we didn't score a goal. And it seemed like he was just really kind of bucking up his team. But that was crossing my mind. I rewatched the match. It's like Arsenal got the goal, and we'll talk about the officiating a little bit, because I'm of 2 minds of that as well. But it seemed that the team kept its composure. The team then they're like, okay, we scored. Well, then we can do it again. And for 15 minutes, again, they were buzzing around. And you'd see Saka beat his man and curl in around the right side, or Martinelli beat his man along, and Gabriel's too. Gabriel was getting mugged, but yet he was still able to fight through. Open, lots of touches in the box, no clean shot, and then in the end, very, very few. Martinelli had one really good cross goal header that almost tricked De Gea. De Gea was able to get a hand on it and deflect it away, but did lack of production compared to the work that they were doing. Really, at the beginning of the second half too, until the goal came. That floats in the back of my mind. It's like, I hope this is a bad habit that doesn't recur. That seems like bad luck, but still, that killer instinct in the box is something I would be looking for, especially when they play Everton. If anyone of you would pick at that, am I being a little melodramatic about that, or?
No, I think on this game it's a fair assessment. There were times in the box where everything they tried to fashion, and it's been said a lot over the years, but we tried to fashion the perfect chance, or certainly a very high scoring chance. So an extra touch here, an attempted pass there. And I think sometimes, I think there's a mentality in it. Obviously, we know De Gea is a good shot stopper. We know Old Trafford is a tough game. They wanted to create a chance that was almost guaranteed to score. However, I personally think it should go the other way. In games like that, sometimes you've just got to take pot shots or half chances and just see what happens, because we've seen it in several games this season already, where you take a chance, like Saka against Palace for the second goal. Took a chance, it ricocheted into the back of the net. So, but we have seen, some ruthless finishing and some chances taken. I think just this game, they kind of got caught up in how good they needed to play to get those goals. And I think it just went the wrong way. But I do expect against Everton that their confidence, they're probably quite happy to take more half chances because they know they don't need to fashion the perfect chance against them.
MJ would let you pick at that. If you have
I think creating chances hasn't really been a problem for us this season, so far anyway. I think before the United game, I can't remember where I saw it, but I think we're third for big chances created. So we haven't had a problem with creating the chances and taking those chances. But against United, it seemed to be that we were sort of one pass away or maybe a good shot away from really testing De Gea. And at the end of the game, it seemed that United had all the big chances, and that's obviously by fact. But I think just on the day, it seemed to be we were just one pass away. And it was just one of those games. And we were coming up against a back line that was probably just slightly informed. So that was probably a bigger test in comparison to the previous back lines that we've played against. Mm-hmm. But it was just one of those days. We were probably just that one pass away or that one shot away. But against Everton, I expect that to be the completely opposite. I hope anyway.
I'm going to go back to your point, Jacob, about just taking the chance. I'm going to pull it from another sport. If you ever watch hockey, they call them, when they're in the playoffs, things get tighter, and they call the greasy goal, the ugly goal. Throw it in front, let the scrum develop and jump it on and kick it in. And Arsenal's been doing that, especially when they've fallen behind. If you think to the previous match when they were down 1-0, and then Odegaard attacked, took a chance, hit it, knocked it off a defender's backside, and it goes in. And it was that kind of thing. I was looking for something like that. In fact, Arsenal's goal actually came from that. Our Gabriel was set through, but he was tackled and the ball came out, and Saka was there to pounce on it. So I think for me, the ruthlessness, that's what I'm looking for. It's just like, make them stop you. But it's that's all hindsight. So MJ, I'm going to go turn back because we knew going in, and it wasn't just in our group, this was Arsenal wide. I think everybody was watching the Prem the day prior, watched ridiculous VAR overturn, non-call after another in a number of matches that benefited big clubs. And I think it is this current that was running through, like, oh no, we're going to Old Trafford. Get ready. We're next. And again, this is, I don't want to make it sound too much like sour grapes, but there was a confluence of this. United came out with this strategy of we're going to rough Arsenal up. Gabriel was knocked about from the beginning, all 90 minutes. He was being thrown. Varane lived with two hands. When he had his back to the box, Varane had two hands on his shoulders just about every time I saw them. And then when he was able to spin away, his shirt was tugged, or, he got free in the middle. McTominay just grabbed him with two hands and flung him to the ground and got a card. But a lot of that wasn't called. And I look at, I have two minds of this, and I'm going to let you kind of pick at it, whether it hurt or not. But part of me was like, okay, this is how teams, the book they had in the Wenger days at Arsenal, they're a pretty team. They like the pretty goals, rough them up, make it hard for them. But on the flip, Arsenal took it. They just didn't seem too fazed by it.
Yeah, I think we're a lot better now at that sort of fight game now when it comes to the physical element of it. I think with the decisions, the foul strategy from United, it is a little bit confusing because I think we all know that the refs this season have to let more go. But then that doesn't mean McTominay makes a whole new foul up when he WWE'd whoever that was. I can't remember who it was it Gabriel Jesus, wasn't it?
It wasn't Jesus. Let me fling you, pick you up.
Yeah, DDT'd him. So it was a bit. I think with the fight, I don't mind that too much. I think we can handle it. I think we're a bit more better suited, especially with the mentality of the players now. I think size-wise, we've got a much bigger team in terms of height and definitely strength, I think, as well, with the players that have come in this transfer window. But it was interesting to see how the referee managed it. The timeline was going a bit crazy the night before. We were next with the VAR, and we can talk about that in detail. But I think we coped with it pretty well. It didn't wind us up too much, but we've got to ride with it. I think we should have expected it as well. So I'm sure Mikel Arteta would have told the guys, they're going to come in at us. Let's be ready. So I think we did all right with that from that point of view.
Jacob, what got me about the whole thing was Paul Tierney, referee, comes out and says, "I'm going to let him play." And we saw it. McTominay shoved, Martinez basically kicked over Jesus in like the third minute when he's making an attack up the far side. A couple minutes later, the ball goes into Martinelli. McTominay just gives him a two-hand shove on the sideline and just throws him out. And Arsenal got up and said, "Okay, that's the way you want to play it. We're going to play it." And it seemed to be, okay, I'm going to let him play. And the club said, "Okay, we're going to let him play." So it was very startling to me that on a 50-50 that was very consistent with the way he had been managing the game, where Odegaard dispossesses Eriksen, Saka jumps on it, feeds Martinelli, Arsenal gets the goal. Suddenly that's reversed. Although, I must say to Tierney's credit, he was looking right at it. He just waved it on. It was the dreaded VAR from above said, "Oh, we want you to look at this again." And we know, and he was looking right at it. He was very close to it. He was only a few yards from it. So, but when it's almost like the school teacher telling the pupil, I want you to think about what you did and tell me what you did wrong. Once he had to go to VAR, you thought, oh no, this is going to be overturned. The manager calls up for consistency, but I think he's got a gripe there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it is consistency. Like the on-field ref let the game flow. He set a tempo for the entire game, and that was the way the game was allowed to flow. And they have got this directive that they're going to let more play. So he stuck to that directive. In previous seasons, McTominay could have been sent off about 5 times over with the amount of fouls and yellow cards he might have picked up. But the directive is let the game flow. However, that then directive seems to get overruled when a goal happens, the whole point of the game. So the moment a goal happens, oh, no, we can't let it flow. We've got to find a reason to not allow the goal. And it's not just happening to Arsenal. It's happened to several teams over the weekend. So you've got the refs
happened
enforcing...
to Palace, right? It happened to...
West Ham.
Yes.
You've got one set of rules on the pitch where the referees are enforcing to this directive. And yes, making mistakes sometimes, but they're they're enforcing certain rules, and then VAR get involved and go, "Nah, we don't really like this directive. We don't like these rules. So go and change your mind." Now, there was an example on the Saturday where I believe it was Michael Oliver went, "No, I've set this game out. I am sticking with my decision." But most of these refs are, a lot.
That's a very tough thing to do. They're being put on the spot by the VAR people.
Yeah, and a lot of these refs are less senior than the guys we've now got in the VAR. They were long-term refs who have left the pitch and are now in the room. So obviously they're seeing these guys as very seasoned professionals. It would be like Miguel Aziz coming into the team and telling Xhaka and El Neni everything they do is wrong. So obviously the younger refs are obviously looking at their seniors going, "Oh, you must be right." They're not going to step out of line against them. So, of course, and it took so long to look at, you can tell there was obviously debate. Now, at the start of the season, we were promised these conversations were going to come out, once a week after all the games. Strangely enough, they've now delayed that implementation and have promised it for later on in the year because there's clearly not coordination between the two sets of teams right now. And until, all the officials from on pitch, touchline, and the guys in the VAR room are lined up, we are going to get massive inconsistencies. And I don't really know what we can do about it right now, unfortunately.
Just try to outplay it. But let's talk about that. The end game. Arsenal fought, and they fought. And, to their credit, before the goal was conceded, they were buzzing. After the initial United goal was conceded, they were buzzing. They came out really strong in the first 15 minutes of the second half. Were moving the ball around, coordinating, just dealing with the pressure, and finally got rewarded for this. They forced a turnover. Odegaard got the ball, a nice through ball to Jesus, who was tackled just as he approached the ball around the 6-yard box. It rolls out to Saka and is punched in, and here we go. Arsenal is 1-1, and you think, okay, this is a result. They're at least deserve this much. They fought this hard. 1-1 is a fair scoreline at that point. And then it seems that now we can kind of say, well, Arsenal kind of got in their own way at that point.
Yeah, go on.
MJ, you take it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you guys both get a crack at this, but
the momentum was it was definitely with us. I think up to that Saka goal, it was only just 5 minutes before the goal where Saka he had just put that shot wide on the left hand side. So the momentum was building, and we were doing really well we actually worked really hard to get that goal, the front four. I guess the biggest disappointment is, as hard as the front four were working to get that goal, it was just that back line of ours that were just not ready for those needle-like passes that Bruno and Eriksen were putting through. But I think when it got to 1-1, I did feel that we could go on and win the game. And then all of a sudden, in a couple of minutes, Rashford's through. It's probably down to a bit of naivety. I don't know. We had the momentum, and I think if we had just kept doing what we're doing, we might have maybe gone to 2-2. But I think that third goal came out at the worst time possible. It made the subs look like a bad decision, which probably, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think the subs was one of the reasons? There's a lot of debate and discussion around the 3 subs and the timing of it.
I think the subs, as soon as they got to 1-1, the sub was just rolling. It's just bad timing that the goal is conceded probably about a minute before they're ready to go on. And if you're the manager at that point, is like, do I sit them down? What do I do? I've still got to chase a goal. And this has been his formula, to go 3 at the back and try to, when he needs that goal, get that goal. For me, the bigger question, again, I'll let Jacob, who I don't know what you think about this, but a lot of people were sniping at Lukonga because this is his, he's the obvious, if you're looking for a scapegoat, one, because Thomas Partey's not there. But I mean, I think and a lot of people are looking at the tactics. The back line in both of the second and third goals were, they were at midfield. Arsenal had taken all 10 players and put them in United's half, or at least in United's starting at the midfield line. And is that, you said naivete would, but some people said Arsenal played into their hands, but on the other hand, that's how Arsenal plays.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to compromise our style and tactics anymore. We have done it in the past under Arteta. We won the FA Cup by going 5 at the back, or 3 at the back, 5 at the back, however you want to call it. I know everyone has different
a lot of
technicalities.
3-4-3, 3-5-2, right? A lot of pack the midfield. Not anymore.
Yeah, we compromised our tactics because we didn't have the players who could play in a certain way. We now do, and the philosophy is we're going to go out and play, and we're going to, try and enforce our game. And on the whole, we did. And if we do that to every team we face, we're going to win the vast majority of games. Now, I'm sure there will be games we can't impose that sort of thing. And that'll be an interesting test when it happens. But this game, yeah, it's United read what we were going to do, and they set up in a certain way. And unfortunately, I think the Partey injury has played into this. And it's not to blame Sambi, because on the ball, he played very, very well. He did a lot of good stuff in this game. But he is not Thomas Partey. Very few players in the world can do that role. And I think Sambi has pushed up a little bit higher than Partey would, which has meant the defence is pushed up to, because they don't want a massive gap between midfield and defence. So they pushed up. And obviously, when Bruno gets that ball for the second goal, who would be the man who's usually on him trying to win that back in midfield? It'll be Partey. Now, right now, that is not Sambi's game. He's still developing his ball carrying and distribution and kind of breaking lines. And he's doing those aspects really well. And I just don't think we can expect someone, as young as Sambi to have developed this game. I mean, less than a year ago, Thomas Partey was saying he still hadn't adapted to that role, and he was doing, I think he rated himself 4 out of 10. A seasoned professional under Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid couldn't play that role at first time of asking. So I just think it was a bit too much for Sambi in that game, given the opposition and the tactics that he were playing. But, I think I've seen comments saying we should get rid of him and things like that. I don't think that's true at all. He had a good game on the whole. It's just he is not Thomas Partey, and I don't see why anyone can hold him to those standards.
All right, well, let's move forward, because there are 2 matches coming up. One is tomorrow, and Arsenal, again, they're going to start Europa League. They're going to play FC Zurich in Zurich. With a slightly reduced lineup, but this is going to give us an opportunity to see some of those gentlemen who gave cameos at the end of the United match. So let's circle it back to you, Jacob. We saw a few minutes of Fabio Vieira based on that little tiny sample size. What did you see? And I guess he's going to answer a lot of can't answer questions in 90 minutes. We just start to answer some questions tomorrow about him. He's been the mystery man because of his injury. We haven't seen him in the preseason.
Yeah, admittedly, by the time he started getting the ball, I was feeling very disappointed and kind of zoned out a little bit. So I probably didn't fully appreciate everything he was doing at this point of the game. But what I did see was very promising. Now, some of those balls and the technique he showed on the passing is phenomenal. And one of the biggest concerns I think everyone's had about him is obviously he's very slight. Oh, anyone's going to just, shove him off the ball. Now, he actually went into a few battles and, came out of them with the ball still. So I think he's going to be very interesting to watch and see how he develops. And what positions he's going to be playing in most, because obviously we kind of changed our formation here. But in our main formation, it'd be interesting to see kind of, is he covering Saka? Is he covering Odegaard? Possibly a bit of both, but it will be exciting to see where he starts tomorrow night. Assuming, which I think everyone is right now, that he does start.
What did you see, Jay?
Yeah, I was really, from the 15 minutes that we got from him, I did a little post around him. I liked what I saw, and I am hoping he starts tomorrow. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't start the game tomorrow. Just from his sort of mini touches that he had and the moments that he did have a positive impact, and it's probably more appreciated, as Jacob says, after the game. We'd definitely be praising the performance if we had come away with a victory, but I liked what I saw. I think there's a really good player in there. I think he's, with the whole question around his physicality, he's probably one of those players where he's probably a second ahead of you. So he's not worried about his physicality. He's probably in Portugal, he's probably one of the skinniest players that was on the pitch at the time in most games. But he's sort of got that Bernardo Silva profile of body. They're not the same type of players in their playmaking. But in terms of the body type, he's probably closest to Bernardo Silva. So, and the way the type of players Portugal are producing at the moment, a lot of them are midfield rich. They know how to use the ball right and how to use the ball when and where. So he's probably got that sort of step ahead. He knows what he's doing, and I hope we're going to see more of that hopefully tomorrow. In terms of his long-term position, I'm not sure where we might see him. My prediction is he's probably going to cover Saka. I have a really sort of a thought around that. With Saka on the right, with Odegaard to keep his positions, but he's because he can cover a couple of different positions. I'll probably see him in a number of those. But it'll be interesting to see when Mikel sees him play.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I was going to bring that up. Obviously, Saka needs a rest, and the obvious solution to that would be to let Emile Smith-Rowe have a start, and he was due a start, and then it's just terrible luck. A topic we'll bring up in more detail, but he was injured in the warm down in the post game after his 10-15 minutes, so he's not available tomorrow. So what do? I guess they stay with Odegaard in the midfield, but I was going to say, even if Vieira's on the right, one thing that I saw about him in those few minutes is that, and we saw it, he had a lot of goals and a lot of assists coming out of Porto, and he was not shy about taking a shot, looking for a shot, taking a shot. I like that. I mean, obviously it was not a well-placed shot. It kind of flew up into the stands, but I thought, okay, he was behind. He was trying to make something happen, but it's in keeping with what we've heard about him. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do when the game is open and even and there to be controlled. Jacob, you want to anything either one of you was said about?
Yeah, I think given the injuries and the situations, there is a chance. Now, whether or not Arteta wants to take this route and go, really heavy and give people a chance, but we could see Fabio Vieira in that Odegaard role to make sure Odegaard gets the rest that he needs. And we might see Marquinhos in Saka's role to give him the rest that he's needed. Now, obviously, that would be a big responsibility for two very young players, but particularly in this competition, it's something that we've become accustomed to. Lots of players have been given their chance and made their name for themselves in this competition. Martinelli, prime example, Smith-Rowe as well. So it wouldn't be too surprising to see Fabio Vieira play that more central role tomorrow with Marquinhos wide. But yeah, it's good to have the options. That I do think he will offer something different in both of those positions. Obviously, he does have the ability to whip in a good ball and seemingly change his body position coming from outside to in, from the wing. But also the way he controls the ball and dribbles, and his movement with the ball is very Bernardo Silva like. So obviously that's going to hurt teams centrally. And hopefully Zurich is the sort of caliber to test that out on.
MJ, a couple of other players it seems like they're screaming for time. Eddie Nketiah has embraced the role for these first half dozen games of coming off the bench and providing instant game-changing pace and energy in this last 20, 30 minutes. I saw a statistic after the match, after the United match, of all the fouls that Jesus has endured, but then in the season he is by far the most fouled player in the Prem. It seems like he's put a target on himself with the effectiveness in the early matches. It seems like Eddie's almost due, if nothing else, just to let Gabriel kind of ice his bruises, so to speak.
Yeah, and what we've seen of Eddie so far, I think the first signs of Eddie's development was in pre-season when I think the first game against Nuremberg, he had a different type of pace in the way that he was moving with the ball. So I was like, okay, maybe this is a slightly different Eddie. And I really do hope he gets his chance and he takes his chance tomorrow. It'll definitely give Gabriel Jesus some rest. I think we saw from an Instagram picture earlier that Jesus has gone with the squad. So it'll be interesting to see if he starts the game or whether he comes on towards the end of the game. I'm of the opinion that we give Gabriel Jesus the rest and give Eddie the chance, because Eddie, from what we've seen so far, he looks physically capable now to lead that line. And he had a really good finish to the end of the last season. But it looks like physically he's developed. He looks better with the ball. He looks better on the ball. So I'm expecting to see him start and Gabriel Jesus on the bench based on evidence from today. And I'm actually really excited to see how Eddie does, because I wasn't quite sure where his place was with us or whether it would be with someone else, because there was the one time when he declined a contract extension. But that's now looking like a blessing for us in that he stayed with us.
And it did look, it was, I think, raised some eyebrows, gentlemen, when he was one of the first signings that he extended, and people thought like, oh, we thought we were going to leave. And there were some other clubs in the Prem, good clubs that had showed some interest in him. But he wanted to stay. It seemed that he had some assurance that he was going to get some time. Jacob, maybe tomorrow, but, looking at other players that are due arrest, Ben White's due, I think, arrest, and it might be time for Tomiyasu. He's been, according to the manager, been fit for the last few weeks, ready to go. It's just that he doesn't want to tinker with the formula that was working. Might be we've seen Zinchenko already had an injury, need a little rest. Get the fullbacks cycled in.
Yeah, I was potentially expecting a full change to the back four, but it's now emerged that Cedric has not travelled. So I was potentially thinking maybe Tomiyasu at left centre-back, which isn't a role we've seen him in before, but it's a role he does play with Japan. So, just to allow that full rotation. But yeah, so I am expecting Tomiyasu, Holding and Tierney to start tomorrow. Be interesting to see if Gabriel keeps the left centre-back spot or if he moves Saliba over there to potentially see how he does on that side. But yeah, I'm Tomiyasu will almost certainly start. Like he looks ready. He's fighting for his place back now, which last season there was no threat to that position. Like Cedric was never keeping Tomiyasu out of the team, but Ben White has come in and done a really good job.
Could I ask a question?
Like that's his job to keep now. Go ahead.
I was going to ask around Tomiyasu, sorry. In terms of Bukayo Saka's partnership, do you guys think Saka plays better with Tomiyasu or Ben White? Ben White, they've both done a really good job in the times that they've had together, but who suits who the most?
It seemed, just to my eyes, we got to think back, because Tomiyasu, it's been a while since he was there, but he was good at setting Saka up going forward. But what I've noticed is, Ben White is really good getting deep, and Saka sets him up, and he's got that energy going around. We don't see Tomiyasu going that far up the field. And also, I have to give him credit when they were working a lot of through the left in the first few matches. It was actually White, when they reversed the ball, who was providing a lot of setups for the forwards. So I can see why the manager would want to stick with that. But I don't know. That's how I see it.
Yeah, Tomiyasu's had a lot longer to develop that partnership with Saka. So I think right now there is a more coherent understanding. But I think we've seen it even in the few games this season that the partnership between White and Saka is developing quite fast. Game 1 wasn't really a lot of connection between the two. However, Ben White also spent his whole game occupied with Zaha, so he didn't have a chance to do the other side of the game.
Right.
And in the last few games, White has started getting closer to Saka. Now, he's not really overlapping or anything like that yet, but it looks like it's something that's starting to develop.
I know so little about Zurich. How do you think Arsenal's going to approach this? Obviously, they're going to have a lot of turnover tomorrow. But as we said, with players who are just chomping at the bit, who really deserve some time. Eddie deserves time. Vieira, he's just dying to get on the pitch and get minutes. I'm sure the same with Tomiyasu. I'm sure the same with Rob Holding. I'm sure Tierney too has had limited time. I think these guys, the club shouldn't lack for energy tomorrow.
I think Zurich won the league last season. I saw just earlier on. I think they won the league last season, but they haven't started this season very well. They're 7 games in, and I think they're second bottom. So I think we're playing them at a good time, but I don't want to say that before the game because we know what happened with Chelsea and Zagreb last night. But the key thing here, I guess, is the response from the United game. I think we've got to try get the win from tomorrow and approach this like any other game. It is our first trip outside of the country of the season, so there is a slightly different mindset and slightly different approach. Now that we're back in Europe, we've got to take that into consideration. But I'm hoping we can impose plan A as we have done so far and do what we know best. And the players that haven't played many minutes, they're getting their chances. And when they do take that chance tomorrow to start, if it's Marquinhos, if it's Vieira, they can impress. And we'll see how the game goes tomorrow.
All right, gentlemen, it's always a risky thing with a tournament like this where there's so much unknown, so many players we haven't seen on our side, and so much we haven't seen from the opponent. But let's do it. That's why we have the pod. Jacob, give me a prediction. It's a fool's errand, but we're all going to do it. So,
well, obviously, like every Twitter expert, I've spent the last 5 years watching every Zurich game. No, I don't. I think this one is tough because we don't know what to expect from Arsenal. We spent the last few games kind of saying we're going to come out, we're going to shape up this way, this is how we're going to play. And even in the defeat to United, we were right. That's how they played. It's almost just as unknown about how we're going to play as how Zurich are going to play. But we do have good depth, good players who, would start for other teams. So I'm going to go 3-1 to Arsenal.
Take it.
I was going to say 3-1 as well.
You guys poached my score. All right, I guess we're all going to say 3-1. That's going to be my score. Okay. Okay, 3-1. It's unanimous. We all held up 3-1 cards. All right. Coming back to the league, though, again, the impetus will be strong to bounce back, to show Arsenal's mentally tough, that they're not going to let one setback knock them down. Everybody. It's funny how it happens in the press and even among the fan base when they were 15 from 15 points. Oh, they could do no wrong. But we all knew that this day was going to come. They weren't going to go. This is not an invincible squad. And this is not an undefeated squad, that they were going to have a defeat. They had a defeat at Old Trafford. And now you got to guard against the negativity. Oh, they're going to fall apart. Even my dogs are upset about this. But this is an opportunity. They're playing a team that is in only outside the relegation zone on goal difference. They only have 4 points. Everton does. But to their credit, gentlemen, they got a point. And if not for a very, very tight overturn, would have defeated Liverpool this past weekend. So you never take things for granted in the league. We know that. What's the approach you're looking for? MJ, start us off with Arsenal hosting Everton this weekend.
Yeah, I think the thing with losing the weekend before is the comeback and is the next game. So if you offered me another 2-1 win, another 3 points, I'd probably take it. But I think for this game, I do want to see. I don't want to scrape through another 2-1. I want to see a bit more of a faster sort of clinical side to see what that mentality is and a bit more stability. So if we can race into a 3-0 first half lead, that'd be amazing. That'd be a really good statement. But the Everton side that took on Liverpool in the past weekend, the lineup that played against Liverpool, there's some really good players in there, and the players that Lampard and Everton have signed over the window, there's some really interesting players that they've gone for and the type of players they've gone for. Onana looks quite good. And Iwobi seems to be reinvented at Everton. So this is probably going to be a little bit more tougher than we think. Not sure how we lost to them during their run over Christmas last season. I think we were the only victory they had during their sort of poor spell. But I think for this weekend, the response is going to be key. I do want to see a more killer edge Arsenal. But I would take 3 points anyway, however it comes.
We've been talking about this as a group, Jacob, you know this, for a few weeks now, that it certainly didn't happen at Old Trafford, but we're like, Arsenal still hasn't clicked yet with the ball. They've had their moments, they've had some nice goals, but you think back to, say, the preseason match where they played Chelsea and everything clicked for them. And Jesus could have had 4 goals in the first half, and they were just on these guys. Didn't let him out of a half, and everything worked. The passes worked, the cohesion worked, all the coordination worked. It's obviously tougher. It's in the league now. It's regular season. Everybody's playing their best 11, but I think we're still waiting for that. And I've heard some rumors that Partey could be available this weekend. But I agree with MJ. I think this is an opportunity. I think Arsenal's got to look to say, okay, let's we're at home now. The referees probably shouldn't let our opponent mug us off the pitch. It's time to show what we can do. Strut a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, them drawing 0-0 with Liverpool shows they're not having a good time either. Napoli have currently just put 4 past Liverpool.
Yeah, I just saw.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and Jordan Pickford had a great game that day. And news today.
Interesting you mentioned that.
Yeah, because news today, Jordan Pickford looks like he is going to be out, so Begovic will play. Now, Begovic has had some good games over the years, but as second choice keeper at the stage of his career he's at, he's not Jordan Pickford at his best.
Pickford had a outrageous match against Liverpool. It was a big reason that they didn't concede. So that's a big loss for them. Anyway,
yeah. So obviously that's going to factor in. And they have made some interesting signings. And I agree, I do like the look of Onana, but he is still very raw and inexperienced. I just think the players we've got should be able to play around most of these. And as good as Iwobi is currently looking, we've had our fair share of watching him. If he's their most dangerous player, I'm not really shaking in my boots if I'm our defence. And that cohesiveness with the attack, we haven't clicked yet. When we will click, who knows? We clicked at a lower intensity. The preseason games, everything was clicking. We've just got to get there on the higher intensity where defenders are pushing you a bit more and you've got less time to do it. But that will come. They're training together. They're playing together. In a minute, that's going to really step up. We've got players who can score. We've got players who can create. There's no reason to think that is not going to suddenly explode and we're going to start blowing teams away like we've already done to Bournemouth, but even Liverpool put 9 past them and they can't score against anyone else at the moment. But yeah, I would expect us to go out and really kind of put a marker down again and go, all right, we had a bad week last week, but we're going to show you how good we are still.
Yeah.
So I do think this is going to be similar to our last game of the season where we had Everton last year. We're just going to blow them off the park.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm the same. I think I wouldn't be surprised if we had that same type of performance. Everything's going in. That's probably what I want to see. I want to see just get rid of the loss in our minds and move on. I think after the game against United, I know we don't have Amazon this year, but I'm sure Mikel Arteta would have said to the guys, we swallow this and we move on, and that's it. You know, the game against United won't define us. It won't define our season, but it's the games against Everton, against Fulham, against Villa. Those are the games that will decide our points total at the end of the day. Our target for the season is top 4. I know there'll be some fans for the title, but I don't think we're ready for the title. But it's games like Everton at home this weekend, and I do just expect the 3 points. It doesn't matter how.
And that's a good point. That's one thing that dogged Arsenal last year. Matches against clubs that, quote unquote, they should beat, mid-table, lower table. They conceded way too many points in those, especially down the stretch. It wasn't, we expect them to play well and lose to the City, play well and lose to Liverpool, but losing to clubs far below them was, I think, what drove everybody crazy, and ultimately that's what cost them a top 4 position this season. So I'm with you, and since I'm tired of you guys poaching my goals, I'm going to lead off this round. I'm going to predict 4-1 result for Arsenal. I'm going to go around this way. MJ, what do you say?
I will say 4-0 with the clean sheet. We haven't had one in a while, so we're due one.
I know, Jacob, it's tough when you're the last one. Everybody gets a crack and it's like, that was mine. Go justify it. It's okay.
Yeah, as I said, I do think this is with the injury to Pickford, with us needing to prove a point. I think this team's got a mentality now. This isn't, previous years where one loss shakes every ounce of confidence this team has and they forget how to play for 3 weeks. This team, especially, we've added people like Zinchenko and Jesus who've come from that environment of City have a loss. Oh well,
shake it up.
More
in a row, right?
Yeah, more fool the next person who's got players now that we've lost a game. That is their attitude. If they get beat, the next week they come out and go, "Yeah, you've got no chance. We're hurting. Sorry, it had to be you." And I think that's the attitude we're developing. It's not as strong as City's, but it's the attitude we're developing. And I do think, I just think we've got way too much for them. I can't see, they lost their best goal scorer. It's gone to the dark side of North London. I just do not see which players can hurt us. So yeah, clean sheet, and I'm going confident. I think we'll score 4.
Okay. So a lot of confidence. A lot of goals we're predicting. 7 between us. I think everybody's predicted 3 tomorrow and 4 in the weekend. So, all right. I'm not backing down from that assessment. Before we leave, though, we're in the injury time of the pod, but there's a topic we need to address. We've got my little ESR card here. Emile Smith-Rowe suffered another injury. We've waited for him. And now to see that I'm not sure if it was a hamstring or some lower body injury, but suffered in after the match, not from play, but some freakish thing. Is this something that we should be concerned about? Because we talked about Thomas Partey and the joke at part-time because he missed so much time in his Arsenal career, but Emile Smith-Rowe is really making his weight. Jacob, you start with that.
Well, Arteta said in his press conference today that actually he's felt discomfort in that area and he's been dealing with it for a few weeks. So it's obviously flared up in the cool down. Trying to stretch it off, I don't know, overstretched it or something like that. But it is an area that he's not been right on for a while. So that is concerning because it appears to be his groin again, which he's had
Those can
several
be
issues
chronic,
with.
and those can be very, very tricky to manage. Yeah, that's not a good injury.
No, but it does raise a question of should he have been playing at all. Now, obviously, they have far more information than us. The medical team have obviously cleared him, but it's tough when you come out when he's suffered an injury that we don't know how long he'll be out for yet. Yeah, Arteta has not confirmed that. But when a player gets injured and they're going to be out for a little while, and you knew they were struggling, it is going to just cause questions to be asked of you. Now, I think we've got to give them benefit of the doubt that they had more information than us. But yeah, when things like that backfire, obviously questions will be asked.
I think
Is that fair, MJ? Might he have been rushed?
I would sort of echo the lines of Jake. We don't really know what the fitness levels. I think if he was cleared, then he's fine to play, and it's just a sort of a 1 in a million in the warm down. Who knows? I think from the big picture thinking, the difference between him and say Thomas Partey is Emil Smith-Rowe. He's got time on his side, so if we want to give him that time to get over those injuries so he can play full time for us, he's got that sort of advantage already. So I don't want to see people tweeting, well, let's sell Emil Smith-Rowe now and blah, blah, blah. I've seen a few of those already today and yesterday. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I don't know. We know before the Chelsea home game a couple of years ago, he's been struggling with a few injuries. So I don't know whether they're related or similar. But he'll be one to watch, I guess, in the next year or so to see if they keep coming back or not. And if that does, then we'll have another chat another time. But yeah, it's an interesting one, that one.
Okay, well, it seems we have come to the end of the pod. We were predicting 2 victories, all of us, the 4 of us on the last pod. We really didn't talk about the first match midweek because there was such a congestion. We now have the congestion victim for the pod, but 1 victory in the league, 1 feat in the league. Arsenal start the long weekend, top of the league, on parity with everybody in Europa League. So again, we look forward to more positive results and here's an opportunity to come back next week and say we're still top of the league, no matter what. And that's a very, very, very good place to be. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you. MJ, welcome. Come back. Good to have you on the pod. Okay, so while we wait for Sam and for Ryan to rejoin us, we want to say thank you to these 2 gentlemen who've held it. And we want to thank all of you out there in the interwebs for joining us here on the pod, whether you listen to us live or whether you listen to us on Apple, podcasts or any other StreamYard or any other mechanism. Follow us online at Daily Gooner blog or dailygooner.blog. .com. And obviously you see our handles here. Follow us on Twitter. We'll try to keep up with news and observations. Send us your questions. We always welcome those. Pod, not blog. Thank you, Sam. dailygooner.pod. All right. Yes, don't want to send you to the wrong place because then you won't find us. So on that note, for Jake, for MJ, I'm Raphael. We bid you a good night. I should just have it open.